Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing? It seems like you're busy as usual, on the move. You know, Mr. Mayor. Well, first off, let me introduce. This is Chris Black. This is the Eclipse Spotlight Podcast. I guess this is episode. My favorite number is number five, so I don't want to do five. I want to do like 5 or 6 installments of number five. I don't want to make you six, but maybe it'd be. I don't know. I'm gonna give you a special number, Mr. Mayor, because you're like my first official guest. But this is a podcast, and it's about local news. It's about timely and relevant. And I'm pleased to have you. It's like I did a story about one of the stories, so I've had a first guest before, but you are to me my first official elected official leader
Mhm.
interview. So thank you very much for doing this because I've approached other people, but they don't want to talk. It's the truth, right?
Oh,
Or they're afraid where it might go. So for those who don't know who will be watching this later, introduce yourself.
hi, I'm Wayne Smith, former mayor of Irvington, New Jersey. I served between 2002 and 2014. During that tenure, I served as president of the New Jersey Urban Mayors Association, the New Jersey Conference of Mayors. I'm currently the president and CEO of Wayne Smith and Associates, a marketing public affairs consulting firm. And that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.
That's a pretty good story. Listen, before we get into the background and the history, because I started covering Irvington, I believe in what 2001 maybe. So I've known you for a minute.
Mhm.
On and off, even as an elected official and not. But right now, in terms of what you're doing right now, we'll lead off with where you are right now. You mentioned consulting. What is that? What do you
Yeah,
do?
so I do some marketing and public relations and public affairs consulting. So I help firms, individuals who have marketing needs from basic stuff like developing concepts for flyers, for media appearances, um, for just exposure. Some are just connecting people to partnerships that may help their business grow and develop.
Mhm.
And I'll just give you a couple of current projects. I'm working with a developer in Newark. We're doing a 19 unit affordable housing. All 19 units in the West Ward of Newark are all affordable. I'm doing a lot of work in development. I'm assisting someone in Irvington at the Maplewood line working on a project. In fact, we just finished with the architects and engineers, and it's going to the zoning officer now. So we had to require a variance. So I also help people who have challenges with government. And so, those who have no clue about, the area. So one of the things I quickly got involved with after I left public office was assisting businesses who were new to New Jersey. We had a lot of people coming in from out of state, looking at the urban landscape of New Jersey, and just knowing no one, knowing not much about the communities, want to invest their dollars. So we offer them advice and consultation in that direction as well. And we've also expanded into what they call the DMV.
Mhm.
So we have an office now in the Maryland area. We do a lot of work in DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
And that's a good thing because
Yeah.
people are looking to do business in Jersey. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Right. And a lot of times, I'm glad you mentioned what you're doing now in terms of the consulting, in terms of the business and the investment and the economic things, because what I've learned, my years as a journalist and then also just as a regular citizen, right? Most people don't really understand how government works,
No,
right?
absolutely. That's become a niche market for me to help them
Mhm.
understand it.
Yes, right. I mean, and a lot of times, because American business is cut out the middleman, right? Get rid of the middleman, just be directly you. But
Hmm.
and a lot of times it gets in the entertainment industry and other music industry, the whole idea of somebody a middleman or negotiator gets a bad image, because they say, no, they're taking money that you don't need for, like, even in the sports world, the agents and things. But no, you really do need somebody to guide you through and walk you through if you have no experience. And then also because the system is set up to be regulated so that people can't abuse it. And so to meet all the criteria, and it's a lot to meet, a lot of paperwork and things, yes?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And every business, as we move into the area of artificial intelligence, every business though still has that human element. And so oftentimes people do business with first people that they know.
Yep.
So if you know people in the private sector, the public sector, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything, but it does maybe get you a hearing to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
It also gets you exposure. They say, oh, we've done business with this person before. We knew him when he was in government. He was helpful, blah, blah, blah. So those things matter.
Mm-hmm.
Artificial intelligence cannot replicate reputation. And
Facts.
so that is, so that's the role that many consultants play.
Can I interrupt you? I'm smiling if you can see me. I'm smiling because I've always told you, and I've said it over and over again since I first met you, that whatever it is, you got it.
Oh,
right?
Well, that's kind. I appreciate that, Chris.
And that was
Listen,
the truth.
Yeah, it's personality matters, but you got to have some skill sets to go with it.
Facts.
So you have a whole lot of people who have personality, but if you have nothing to offer, then you can't make it in the marketplace. And so,
listen, I'm glad. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of times in our community, which is the Black American community, and I say Black American, I mean Americans descended from Black Africans that were enslaved and brought here against their will.
Yeah, sure.
Not by choice, But so when I say Black American, that's something like that. But a lot of times in our community, we've got this saying, "Oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know." And what you just said about personality and charisma and charm and that'll get you in there, but you need to know how to do something once you get in there.
Absolutely. You have to bring value to the table in every negotiation. And what happens is you make a very interesting point because oftentimes people try to, like, as you say, cut people out. Then they find out once they get involved, or if they get involved and you say, wow, I would have never been able to get this far if I had not retained you, because people know who you are. They receive your phone call or whatever the case may be. So those things make life. If you look at the other professions, like attorneys in particular, oftentimes they know certain things and people that make things easier for you. And that's why they get retained sometimes. They know the law, though. First, number one, they got to know the law. But then it also helps to have those relationships as well. So, consultants, whether it's marketing, public relations, government affairs, public affairs, you have to know the dynamics of the government, the things that you're dealing with, who the players are, how systems work. And then, you can go from there and help advise your client on what's the best approach moving forward. Saves them time and money.
I was just thinking that. I'm glad you mentioned that at the end, but that's why you got it, right? Because I was thinking you want to save time and money, and in business, time is money. You sit there going, I wasted all my time and energy doing this when I could have been going over here doing this. Or should have been going over here doing this.
Yep.
And so that's really what it comes down to me.
Yep.
And then also I wanted to say, you mentioned relationship, you mentioned personality, you mentioned what AI cannot do. Because I agree with you. I'm not scared of AI, right? Because I think people are what's up. Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Former cop said human beings are the apex predator. I don't know if I'll call us that, but I do think that we don't have to worry about AI. We just do us, right? And I mentioned that to say I don't want to call him I'll call him your partner because I know former freeholder and former city council president, people out busy, always talked about Liddy Jones being his political partner, being on the record. But I think of the relationship that you and Deep Beasley had as a partnership. So when I talk about your partner, and he always talked about, and you hinted at it, you mentioned it, but you didn't use the same word, was it comes down to relationships. Right? When we're dealing with people dealing with people is relationships. Right. And in computers and machines, that sounds nice. Oh, you don't got to go through this, you can go through that, this. But by the same token, relationships among human beings matters. Correct? Am I wrong?
No doubt about it. One of the things, every business now is using some form of AI. And so for me, I use it as a research tool, but I verify because a lot of it. So, artificial intelligence was developed by human beings.
Facts.
So it's going to be mistakes in it.
Facts.
And so, a lot of times though it's spot on, but a lot of times you find small errors or whatever the case may be, some large errors. You can't just assume that what's there is going to be factual, but it saves time. It saves time that I would have to do long-term research. I can maybe do some shortcuts and so forth to get to answers and solutions quicker, but I still have to make the decision on how I'm going to use that information. And so that, those are things that the human element I think will never go away, because it's a judgment call. You can have
Yep.
the facts, but then you got to now apply that to the people situation that you're dealing with. And so, we listen, I don't think they've found anything that's going to replace you. Now, manual functions, we'll see a lot of jobs that require manual labor as we move into what I call the Jetson era, where there's going to be robots doing certain things that human beings were doing for manual labor. That's going to be a challenge for some people, but the human intellect, and that's why they call it artificial intelligence.
Yep.
Human intellect is still going to be there for judgment, for discretion. We sometimes, and we used to say this in government a lot, sometimes the solution may be right, but it's terrible for the people.
Facts.
So you have to figure out, okay, can the pressure points of what you have to do, can the human element handle that? And so, oftentimes artificial intelligence will give you the raw answer, but human beings can't handle that particular raw answer because
it's not practical.
Right. So the human element, judgment, and all those kinds of things, I think will always be there, and we just have to use it as another tool. I remember we went through, I guess we're still in the advanced information age, but I remember I used to tell young people, and when I used to speak in schools a lot, especially elementary, I said, I lived through a life where there were no computers, no cell phones, no this, no that. I remember when there was no cable television.
Yeah, man.
And they look at me, they say, well, you must be 1,000 years old when we talk to young kids. But and every stage of human advancement where we looked at, I jokingly talk about the Jetson era, because now with the Jetsons, we're doing things on your watch. We do all that stuff now.
Yes, that Dick Tracy stuff that used to be science fiction, right?
Yeah. But now that's all true. So we're moving. We're gonna have flying cars and driverless cars and all those kinds of things are on their way. So we have to get ready for the future.
Oh, now listen, I want to move on because I want to talk to you. I'm really glad you're one of my guests, Mr. Mayor, because one, you do have it. That's number one. But then two, I want to talk about leadership and Black leadership in the Black community and Black community. But then also in terms of the whole AI thing, I remember I had a job at I don't know if I can say the company's name, but at a certain distribution company, I had a job with a guy, and they had robots. They have robots doing things, right? And I'm watching the robots and they're moving stuff. And I'm saying, wow, this is incredible. And then one of the guys who worked on the robots, who maintained the robots, who made sure he was down there fixing it because something goes wrong. Because like you said, it's made by humans. We are not perfect, so we cannot create perfect things, right? It's the nature of it. And I was telling him, I said, yeah, man, robots are cool, but they're going to replace humans. It's going to be bad. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, and he was, I never forget, he was an African guy. He had an accent. He's like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. He's like, we'll find other things to do. And I said, really? Right? And and it was so simple, but I've had a few moments like that. And I feel like that's one of my talents. When I hear the truth or when I hear insight, I catch it. And I was like, he was right. We'll find something else to do. Social media was not around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you mentioned that, especially as a tool, because, some people are scared of this, man. Right?
Listen, now we can't function hardly without it. We do everything on it.
Yes. And it's scary for people who can't do it. It's just like, if you were illiterate and you couldn't read. And I compare it to this, Mr. Mayor. I remember reading a story one time saying that once upon a time when writing was invented, there were people who were against writing, and they were against writing because they said, oh, if people can write stuff down, then they won't have to memorize things. It will affect their memories. And I said, in a way, that's true. But by the same token, if I die and it's all in my head, it ain't going nowhere anyway, right? Yep. I mean, and so you talk about technological advancement, but to me, I take it back basic to that. Because like I said, there are steps ahead, steps back, steps lateral. But I mean, it's all going hopefully toward the same better place in the future, right?
Sure. Hopefully improve the human condition and the quality of life for people. So yeah, that's absolutely right. And so every advancement, I guess, in human history, you have resistors because it's change. You know, anytime you change something, you're going to have some degree of resistance, and so you got to get ready for that. But yeah, that's what it is. And then you have early adapters. There are always some people who, whatever the technology is, they get in full steam ahead early, and you know they're kind of like your vanguard. Everybody isn't a vanguard leader in particularly in the technology. I don't consider myself a vanguard leader in that area. But you know, I'm always the kind of middle of the road late adapter. I begin to learn the technology when I have to, because when everybody else has to, you can't communicate. You can't. Well, I can't make money unless I learn it. So here we go.
Well, but now listen, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because to me, that's what it's got to be. We talk about the human intellect. That's the measure. You know, everybody's not going to be, rocket scientist, Ben Franklin genius, all right? You know, Oppenheimer. But as long as you can learn what you need to know and learn how to do what you need to do to be successful, to get along and survive, that is what the measure is.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you 100% on that. You also talked about the vanguard, and this gets me back to where I wanted to go with you, because I look around now, and you mentioned you're still doing housing and just but people, I don't know if people realize. I was covering Irvington at the time when you were at the vanguard. I hear people now complaining about the rents in New Jersey. Oh, the rents are so high. Why is the property value? You mentioned affordable housing, because this whole idea of market rate. You talk about Vanguard. You and Wayne Bradley, with your plans and your visions for Irvington, were at the vanguard of that. Way back in 2000, 2001, 2002. Because I remember talking to you, and you were trying to redevelop the East Ward. You're going, oh, we're going to buy this land, and we're going to build a school and for people to send their kids to, and then we're going to, build the houses and attract people. And you said we're going to get people coming from New York. And I said, coming from New York? Why would somebody from New York want to live on 18th Street? Right? You can't go to the corner store. And he was going, no, that's not how it's going to be. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. And that's vanguard. That's visionary. So even if you don't describe yourself like that, but in terms of economics and business and development, you were visionary and vanguard.
That is so very true. So and still that wave, it continues today.
Yes.
And so people. So I used to tell people, hold on to your property. And I get kind of historical quick review. Back in 2002, when I became mayor, people were not getting the true value of their homes. And so then we had the market surge in 4 years. We couldn't give away vacant lots when I started. We start to sell in those auctions lots for $100,000 and over a 4-year period of time. And so then people's property values went up 40% between 2002 and 2006. So then city began to change. So some of the long-term homeowners, some who were from the South, they reverse migration. They were able to get enough money from their Irvington property to buy a bigger piece of property in the South somewhere at a lesser price. And so that helped that reverse migration back to the South. And then our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean or other places, they actually sold their properties and moved maybe to some other suburban area or et cetera. So we lost a lot of long-term residents because the property values had that tremendous spike. Then we had the 2007 recession, which slowed down our development. So by 2008, 2009, things began to kind of slow down in the city. There's some, we get some projects going. Adina did that. We took that 6-acre site at Irvington General Hospital. We got that moving. Now you see people were in devastation when that hospital closed during my
time. See, that's another thing that I hope that we have limited time now, because I know you're busy and stuff. But I want to have you recurring back, because people don't really understand it. You were 100% right. I remember back then covering Irvington, and it was devastating losing that hospital. People was going, oh my God, what's going to happen to us, right, in the future? And you being a leader, this is what I mean about leaders and good Black leaders. And personally, my pet peeves is that as a Black community, Black American, we have not had the best leadership that we needed, that would have served us as a people, and planning and foresight and everything long term since the civil rights movement, really, if you ask me. But that's just my personal thing. And so to me, Black leadership, good Black leaders, good leadership, period, good leader, good leadership, period. But among when we got to step it down and go to like, the subgroups and the minorities, good black leadership is at a premium. We need good black leaders, good, conscientious, responsible black leaders. Because that's what I give you too, Mr. Mayor. You were responsible. You wasn't out there just spending it like you had a blank check. You going, look, we got a budget.
Well, no, we were, yeah, it was tight financial times. We actually, remember, people forget, when I became mayor, we were under state control.
Yes.
We had to get everything that we spent approved by the state. And so we were able to generate enough revenue. And we also had to sell a state that we had the ability to self-govern. And we did both of those things in a matter of a few years, where we had generated enough revenue to take us out of state oversight. And we had convinced the state, even while we were under state, that we could move the city. And they saw that. And we were able to get out of that kind of what I call receivership situation. But I think, when you talk about black leadership, I think people look at government as the only form of leadership that we have. And I think that is a misnomer. Government has its role to play, but there are also other levels of society where we need the same aggressive leadership that people come to expect from government. Government has its role to play. I'm not trying to downplay that. But we have to prepare our young people for government to work effectively. There has to be other people that bring to the table. One of the challenges for any urban mayor is twofold. And if you talk about the black community in particular, is how do we get our people to invest in their own neighborhoods like other people do? So when you look at the economic opportunities of communities, if you look at Irvington, you look at the neighborhoods, not the central business district where, like, for Newark in particular, they're always going to do well for certain areas because you're going to be anchored by Prudential, the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, all stuff like that. But your neighborhood-based businesses, that's where the opportunity for African-American entrepreneurs are, and other people see that. So when they complain about the other ethnic groups coming into urban centers and they're opening up restaurants, they're opening up bodegas, we have to do that. At one point in time, we did that. When I went to the cleaners, the cleaner owner looked like me.
Yep.
The little grocery store guy looked like me.
Yep.
And so how we lost that ground, the beautician looked like me. The barbershop, we still have the barbershops. That's what
listen, I think I agree with you 1,000%, and people are lamenting that now, and they're saying, "Oh, we need to get back to that." And my only concern with that is, especially also the reverse migration or black migration backward, is that we don't voluntarily resegregate ourselves. Segregation was bad. It's okay to be a community, it's okay to be self-sufficient and whatever, but no community, no race is an island, right? And we can't.
No, nobody's saying that we shouldn't participate in the broader American society. That's not my point.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying just in general.
Yeah. I think though one of the challenges we have is, where are opportunities that exist, and why do we resist those opportunities? And so right now we have, President Trump has this thing about immigrants. And, obviously we should enforce the laws of the country. Nobody's saying we shouldn't do that. But in many urban centers, it is the immigrant population that comes and rebuilds.
Yes.
And so.
And revitalizes.
Yeah, that's right. That's an opportunity. But, when we look at what's happening to kind of like poor and working class black Americans, Du Bois had this idea, W.B. Du Bois, that he called, and not necessarily, I don't believe in elitism, but he had this concept called the talented 10th, where the most educated, the most qualified, the most resourceful blacks should be leading the vanguard. Well, one of the things that leading the vanguard is that looking at those opportunities in urban centers that have unique challenges, I tried to convince, I used to say it to them. I said, okay, I get it. You don't want to live here, to some of our best and brightest, but invest here. Yeah. Invest here. This is an opportunity. If we can't compete with the Fortune 500, if they're all competing for a general area, then where's your opportunity at? Are you going to get in that mix when you can't raise the capital against them, when you can build your capital over here and so we begin to get some of that. One of the things I was proud of as mayor is that we got some really small African American owned developers begin to look at the city and developed. One of the things I saw Mayor Baraka doing early, and the project I mentioned to you on 19th, it's on 16th Street, where we're doing the 19 units, is that he gave small developers an opportunity to participate in that landscape. Now they had to raise the money to buy the land from the city, and they did that. But that's an opportunity, and so if we don't snatch it up, we can't blame anyone else when people come. So, the challenge around gentrification for our communities is, well, we don't want those developers to come in with all this big money. But if the property stayed there for 20, 30 years and we didn't figure out a way through the private sector to buy that and create an opportunity, and we have the intellect, we actually have the financial resources to do all of that. We just don't have the organizational, sometimes, the capacity to do it.
Thank you. I want to interrupt you, but yes, because I see where you're going, and I agree 1,000,000%. Because a lot of times I call them the truisms, and the truism is when opportunity knocks, you got to be able to answer the door, and you're 100% right. And so these things are there. Historically speaking, though, there's been things, redlining and things that kept us out. But I think one of the things that's been holding us back is we haven't recognized that because you're so used to having a boot on the back of your neck that when they lift the boot off a little bit, it still feels like it's pressure. It's still there, but you don't realize, it's not as forceful. It's not have my face in the mud like it used to have in the mud. I can actually lift my head up and breathe a little bit, even though it's still on the back of my neck. And that's my analogy for what you're talking about. But I think you're 100% right.
I think that in the midst, one thing about our resilience as a people is that, and I heard a couple people say this very recently, and if we talk about the advance of technology, if I'm a baby boomer, and so I look at the struggle of the civil rights movement, what they call the Black Power movement. There were no computers, there were no cell phones, that you didn't have as many Black PhDs, MDs, technology experts that we have now then. And they were able to took a very entrenched, segregated society and change the world. We can do the same thing. With some of those old ideas are coming to fore now. We have more skills to fight it, more resources to fight it, more ability to develop our own communities than we've ever had before. And we should be doing it. We just have to get that as a focal point for a core group of people to begin to take on, you mentioned Wayne, may God have mercy on his soul, Wayne Bradley. Wayne was a planner. And, part of planning is looking at an idea and projecting that out to the future. And so we just have to have those plans where, when you look at a city, they usually have a master plan. And most times, we as citizens, we don't take the opportunity to look at the direction of a city where they say they want to go. Try to figure out how we play a role in that master plan, or we help shape it. That's why it's important when they have these public meetings to go. You'd be surprised your idea that you have in your head about a neighborhood. If we don't go to planning board meetings, board of adjustment meetings, all those kinds of things to weigh in, then those plans get made without us. And so, and elected officials are invested in trying to interpret the needs of the community they serve, but don't always leave that device entirely to them. You can also let them know what you think.
Go and tell them,
what direction you'd like to see. And they're not saying that it's easy and there won't be challenges around that, but unless we engage, we can be for sure we're going to get what somebody else has decided should happen to our neighborhoods.
And that's the problem, because we're not in control. See, and I think that's what you were talking about before, and I was saying before about the boot on our neck and about being citizenship. I would say the one interesting thing about this Trump era now is Black people, we are realizing we're citizens, right? You can't kick me out of my country, right?
Yeah, right. Mhm.
And because I remember somebody asking me that, black people asking, can they get rid of us too? I'm saying no, right? We got 400 years plus invested in this piece. What the hell, right? Ain't nobody throwing us out.
Well,
And
the challenge about some of this stuff with these mass ICE people, they have arrested and detained American citizens.
yes,
Yeah, and so we have to be very vigilant. You know, it is just another layer of readiness that we have to be prepared for if something like that happens. It's a shame that we have to live in a society where we have to tell our younger people, look, if you get approached by such and such, we used to have to do this with the police even. Make sure you're trying to be, and that it doesn't always work because people have been respectful and gotten killed too.
yeah,
But now with this era, you can look a certain way, and they'll say, hey, what right do they have to ask for your ID unless you're committing a crime? Or
facts.
so it's tough times in that regard.
I'm
For
smiling. I'm smiling not because it's funny, but the irony. Because you mentioned before about police, and what to me this thing that's happening in America now is nobody wants to be treated like black people have been treated for 400 years. Like you
yeah,
said
yeah, oh
before,
yeah, well
you can
yeah.
be
Now
respectful and
listen,
you're not
when
breaking the
this
law, and you got issues. They got problems, right? Because oh, you look like you're gonna do something. No,
it is amazing that people are more engaged. Some of the same people who said, they wanted to see this administration go, and they didn't think that it meant they were going to lose their jobs. And so, it shows that, you know, people sometimes say, oh, well, they're going to get them, but it end up being you.
nah, listen, I don't want to. One of the things about my show is I always try to localize and make everything relevant. So even the national, international stuff, I try to, because everything's intertwined. We human beings is all intertwined. And so you were mentioning that about people with Trump, but I'm smiling because I'm thinking that's how people felt about Christie. All them people who
Oh,
voted for
yes. Oh,
Christie in
yes.
Jersey,
Oh, yes.
thinking, oh, he's going to come in and he's going to give it to them, and he
Yeah.
gave it to y'all too.
Yeah. So, what it's interesting because I think one of the things they thought he was going to do, for at least the police community,
Yeah,
was that he was going to stabilize their pension. And he didn't do that. Some of the people are still fighting for some of those pension rights. And you know, Christie was a kind of fiscal conservative. I lived through the Christie area as a mayor. I had to deal with him, and you know, it was it's interesting some of this. And I was president of the urban mayors at the time while he was governor. Christie was I remember he came to Christian Love. Um, and he was good. And it was funny because if the late Bishop Jackson, who just recently died, Reginald Jackson, called me and said, Governor Christie wants to come to Irvington. Is there a place where we can host him? Well, I wasn't interested in hosting him in City Hall. But then they called me right back and they said Ron Christian was going to host him. God rest, have mercy on his soul as well. And I said, well, listen, Ron is the leader of the church. The church is in the community. He could come. Listen, we can't stop the governor from coming to the community. So I said, I will be respectful as the mayor of the city and come.
mm-hmm.
And so when we came, it was interesting because his staff called me and they were like, well, we were a little concerned about having a meeting in a church. I said, well, all due respect, I think, I don't know, it was the deputy chief of staff or somebody. I said, well, all due respect, I think, you might get a more respectful audience inside of a church because people won't. And so he thought about that. And he said, yeah, you might be right. So when we get there, Governor Christie, was like, we're going to take questions and all of that. But if, people know it, I have a tendency. I said, well, wait a minute, because when I was I said, the governor said, we're not going to have no YouTube moments up in this church here. We're going to be respectful. There's going to be mutual respect on both sides. We may not agree, but, we're going to be respectful. He says, he agreed. He caught himself because, he was good for creating those, what I call YouTube moments, where he was dressing people down or whatever the case may be, but it didn't happen there. And listen, he tried to rein in the fiscal realities of New Jersey, and as it's interesting. it's going to be some challenges with the new governor coming in, Mickey Sherrill. She's going to have to face a budget and a federal government that's not going to be so friendly. And so, it's always nice when you get elected and the high hopes are there, but that reality of what you got to manage is going to hit you in the face on day one.
Facts. Listen, I'm glad. See, that's why you got it, because you took us back to the leadership thing, which is where I wanted to be. Because and also how everything is interconnected and in its relationships. Because you're 100% right, right? Because a lot of times, and this is why I say people don't understand how government works. And then a lot of times, people who run for government as outsiders, they don't understand either till they get inside and they go, "Oh, I can't do that." They go, "No, you
Yeah.
can't do that." And and so you're 100% right, because everything is connected. If that the government giving you money for this, they don't want you to spend the money on that. You can't spend the money on that. Don't spend it on
Right,
that.
right.
Even though you really would like to use that money, I could use that money to do it. Like you can't manage your government like you manage your household or your own personal
Right,
finances.
right. It's not easy to shift budgets when you have, you have to look if you so when you got your broader money, what you call your general fund, your revenue that comes in from taxes and other stuff, that's money you deploy, but you deploy that through a budget. You start out in the beginning of the year to say, well, all right, we're going to bring in X number of dollars in revenue. We're going to spend X number of dollars in public works, X number of dollars in police, X number of dollars here. But so now when you get to the point where something shifts, then you got to go back, sometimes back to the city council, the state legislature, the Congress, and say, one of the things that's disturbing about the current presidential administration is that it has not respected Congress's power of the purse. When they lay out something to be spent, you're supposed to spend it or not spend it as they have prescribed. So that's he's trying to expand what they call executive presidential power. He's gotten slapped back quite a few times by the courts. He's won a few. He's tried to, some people he's been able to fire, some people he had to bring back. So he's really pushing the boundaries on what is executive power. Governors and mayors generally have more clearly defined roles to what they can and cannot do. And so it's going to be, we're at a crossroads. It's interesting, the lieutenant governor, who was a friend of mine, actually, Dale Caldwell, actually helped me when I was mayor. He came in and did some what I call workshops and visioning boards for me. Dale was a good friend. He actually followed me. He was in my office one day and saw my Harvard Senior Executives Program. He said, "Hey, so we talked about how I got into the program. I did a letter of reference for him. He actually took the Senior Executives Program at Harvard as well. And in fact, I recently, about the last 2 years or so, Dale had a television show he was doing, and I was a guest on his show as well. So I was just talking about, he was an assistant deputy commissioner of community affairs. So he knows state government. I was hoping that he was going to end up like Sheila Oliver as the commissioner of DCA, because that really is the biggest, most influential department. It oversees all local government and the New Jersey.
I'm sorry, when you use the acronym, letting people know, DCA means Department of
Community
Affairs.
Affairs. That's right, the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, which is probably all the building construction, licensing, and permits goes under them. All local government functions is under them. The New Jersey Department of Housing and Mortgage Finance is under them, which is the vehicle we use to do these 19 affordable housing units. The New Jersey Redevelopment Authority, the commissioner of DCA, serves as the chairman of both the New Jersey Mortgage Housing Finance Agency and the New Jersey